They pushed the contract across the mahogany table with such arrogance, I can still hear the sound of paper sliding against polished wood. "Sign here, Vivian," my business partner Roger said, his mouth twisting into what he thought was a smile. "You'll never survive without us. This company would crumble in a week without our expertise." His wife, Patricia, sat beside him, her diamond rings catching the afternoon light streaming through my office windows. My windows in the building I'd mortgaged my home to buy. She examined her manicured nails with studied indifference. "Really, darling, you should be grateful we're even offering you anything. Most people in your position would walk away with nothing. I'm Vivian Clark, and this is the true story of how I turned their certainty into my victory. But before I tell you exactly what happened next, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or state in the comments. I love knowing where my stories travel. Now let me take you back to where this all began, because you need to understand just how carefully they'd planned to destroy me. It was April 2019, and I was 63 years old. I'd spent the last 18 years building Clark & Associates, a medical billing consultancy in Portland, Oregon. What started in my spare bedroom had grown into a firm with 42 employees and contracts with 17 major hospital networks across the Pacific Northwest. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Roger Chen had joined me in 2008, right after the financial crisis. He was smooth, educated, had an MBA from a prestigious university, and talked a good game about expansion and modernization. I'll admit it. I was flattered that someone with his credentials wanted to partner with a woman who'd built her business through sheer determination and night classes at the community college. "You're the heart of this company, Vivian," he'd said back then, "but you need someone who speaks the language of modern business. Let me handle the contracts and negotiations. You focus on what you do best, the relationships." I made him a 40% partner, biggest mistake of my life, or so I thought at the time. Patricia came into the picture in 2015 when Roger married her. She had a law degree and immediately inserted herself into the business as our legal consultant. Within 6 months, she'd convinced Roger that they deserved equal standing with me. I was exhausted from managing our rapid growth, and they'd been handling so much of the operational side. Against my attorney's advice, I agreed to restructure. We became 3 equal partners. That's when things started changing. Clients began receiving correspondence on new letterhead that barely mentioned my name. Contracts were renegotiated without my input. I'd arrive at meetings to find decisions had already been made. When I questioned anything, Roger would sigh and say, "This is why we need professionals handling these matters. Vivian, your way of doing things is, well, it's dated." By early 2019, I'd become a stranger in my own company. My assistant, the one I'd hired and trained, now reported to Patricia first. My office had been moved to a smaller space down the hall. They called it reorganization for efficiency. Then came that April morning when they called me into the conference room with their contract. The contract was 37 pages long. I knew because I counted every single one of them while Roger droned on about fair market value and generous severance packages. "We've had the company independently valued," Patricia said, sliding another document toward me. "Given current market conditions and projected growth that Roger and I have engineered, I might add, your third is worth approximately $385,000. I looked up sharply. $385,000? I built this company from nothing. Our annual revenue is over $4 million. Roger leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled together like some kind of corporate philosopher. "Revenue isn't profit, Vivian, and profit isn't value. The fact is, most of our major clients have relationships with Patricia and me now. The hospital administrators trust our approach, modern, data-driven, professional." He paused, letting that last word hang in the air like an insult. "Without us, those contracts would evaporate. You'd be back to working out of your house if you could even get clients at your age." At my age? There it was. "The industry has changed," Patricia added, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Medical billing is all about AI integration now, automated systems, blockchain verification. These aren't concepts you've kept up with. No judgment. You built something wonderful for its time, but that time is past. I felt something hot and sharp in my chest. Not panic. I'd felt that plenty of times before. This was different. This was rage, crystallizing into clarity. "And if I don't sign?" I asked quietly. Roger and Patricia exchanged a glance. They'd been waiting for this question. "Then we'll be forced to call a partnership meeting and vote you out," Roger said. 2 votes to 1. We've already consulted with our attorneys. Given the partnership restructuring you agreed to in 2015, we have every legal right. You'd leave with nothing but your original capital contribution, which, accounting for depreciation and business expenses, amounts to roughly $47,000. He let that number sink in. "Or," Patricia continued, "you could sign this, take the $385,000 and walk away with your dignity intact. We'd even let you say the retirement was your choice. No one needs to know you were forced out." The contract included a non-compete clause that would prevent me from working in medical billing anywhere in Oregon, Washington, or California for 5 years. At 63, that might as well have been forever. There was also a comprehensive NDA preventing me from discussing the terms with anyone except my immediate family and attorney. "We'll give you 24 hours to think it over," Roger said, standing up. "But Vivian, be realistic. You're not going to get a better offer, and fighting us would drain whatever savings you have left. We've already spoken with Mitchell and Associates about legal representation. They're very interested in our case." Mitchell and Associates, the biggest business litigation firm in Portland. The message was clear. They had resources I didn't. After they left, I sat alone in that conference room for almost an hour, staring at those 37 pages. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. "Vivian Clark. It's been a long time." James Whitaker's voice on the phone sounded exactly as I remembered, warm, sharp, and completely unimpressed by corporate intimidation tactics. We'd met 15 years earlier when he'd helped me with a contract dispute. He'd since become one of the most respected business attorneys in Oregon, the kind who took cases because they interested him, not because of the fee. "James, I need help, but I have to be honest. I don't know if I can afford you anymore." "Tell me what's happening." I explained everything. The gradual takeover, the restructured partnership, the contract now sitting in front of me with its insulting buyout offer and its cage of restrictions designed to end my career. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Do you have copies of all the original partnership agreements?" he asked. "Every single one. I might be old-fashioned, but I keep paper files of everything important." "Good. What about financial records? Bank statements, tax returns, client contracts?" "All of it. In my home office." Another pause. Then, "Vivian, don't sign anything yet. I'm going to ask you some very specific questions, and I need you to think carefully before answering. First, when Roger and Patricia renegotiated client contracts, did they ever use your signature or forged authorization?" My mind raced back through the last few years. There were some contracts I don't remember signing, but they showed up in the files with my signature on them. I thought maybe I'd signed them and forgotten, or signed a stack without reading carefully. We were so busy. "Did you give them power of attorney to sign on your behalf?" "No, never." Second question, the company accounts. Are you still a signatory on all of them? "I think so. Patricia handles most of the banking now, but my name should still be on everything." "You think so, or you know so?" I should check. Do that today, tonight if possible." Third question, do you have any documentation showing that the business was solely yours before Roger came on board? Tax returns, business licenses, anything with just your name? "Yes, everything from 2001 to 2008. I could hear the smile in James's voice. "Then here's what we're going to do. You're going to bring me every document you have tomorrow morning. Every partnership agreement, every financial record, every piece of correspondence. And Vivian, we're going to find out exactly what your partners have been doing behind your back." "James, I can't afford to get into a legal battle. They've already retained Mitchell and Associates. Let me worry about Mitchell. You know what I think happened here? I think your partners got greedy and sloppy. I think they've spent the last few years systematically positioning themselves to push you out, and I think they've probably cut corners doing it. People who are willing to forge signatures are usually willing to do worse. You think they forged my signature? I think we're going to find out. Can you be at my office at 9 tomorrow morning? I'll be there. That night, I went through every file in my home office, and what I found made my blood run cold. There were signatures on documents I'd never seen before, contracts with new clients that cut my commission structure without my knowledge, amendments to our partnership agreement that altered profit distribution, and most damning of all, a life insurance policy on me, taken out by the company, with Roger and Patricia as equal beneficiaries, $2 million. I sat on my office floor at 2 in the morning, surrounded by papers that told a story I'd been too busy and too trusting to see. They hadn't just planned to push me out. They'd been systematically erasing me from my own company, rewriting history to make it look like they'd been the driving force all along. There was more. Bank statements showed transfers I hadn't authorized. My personal salary had been gradually reduced, while theirs had increased. Client payments were being routed through accounts I didn't have access to. I photographed everything with my phone. Then I put it all carefully back in order. At 9 o'clock the next morning, I walked into James Whitaker's office with 3 file boxes. He spent 4 hours going through everything while I sat there drinking coffee and watching his expression grow darker. "Vivian," he finally said, "I need you to understand something. What we're looking at here isn't just unethical business practice. This is fraud, possibly embezzlement, forgery. If we pursue this the right way, Roger and Patricia could face criminal charges. I just want my company back. I know. But here's what I'm thinking. They've given you 24 hours to sign their contract, right? That deadline is tomorrow morning." "Yes." "Good. We're going to let them think you're going to sign. In fact, you're going to call Roger this afternoon and tell him you've thought it over, and you'll sign tomorrow morning at 10. Tell him you want your attorney present. That's standard. They won't be suspicious." "What are we really doing?" James smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We're going to that meeting, and you're going to sign something, but it won't be their contract." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "While they've been building their case to push you out, we're going to build something better. We're going to file an emergency injunction, freeze the company accounts, and petition for a full audit. But we're not going to tell them that until we've already done it." "Can we do that? With this evidence?" "Absolutely. The forged signatures alone are enough for a judge to freeze everything while we investigate. And Vivian, when we dig deeper, and we will dig deeper, I guarantee we're going to find more." I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. "There's one more thing," James said. "The life insurance policy. That's unusual. Combined with everything else, it creates a very disturbing pattern. We need to be careful. I want you to vary your routine, stay with family if you can, and definitely don't go anywhere alone with either of them." The hope froze in my chest. "You think they would actually—" "I think desperate people do desperate things, and people who've committed fraud to the tune of what I'm seeing here, they're desperate, whether they show it or not." I called Roger that afternoon, keeping my voice tired and defeated. "I'll sign tomorrow, 10 o'clock. My attorney will be there. Standard procedure, you understand." "Of course," Roger said, and I could hear the triumph in his voice. "We knew you'd see reason, Vivian. This really is for the best." That night, I stayed at my daughter Linda's house in Beaverton. I hadn't told her much, just that there were some complications at work. But she knew me well enough to see something was wrong. "Mom, you look exhausted. What's going on?" I wanted to tell her everything, but James had advised keeping quiet until after tomorrow. "Just some business things I'm working through, honey. It'll be resolved soon." The next morning, James picked me up at 8:30. In his briefcase were documents Roger and Patricia had never seen, documents they didn't even know existed. "How do you feel?" he asked as we drove toward downtown Portland, terrified, angry, ready. "Good. Remember, let me do most of the talking. If they ask you direct questions, answer honestly but briefly. Don't elaborate, don't explain, just answer what's asked." We arrived at the office, my office, at 9:55. Roger and Patricia were already in the conference room, along with a man I didn't recognize. Expensive suit, leather briefcase, their attorney. "Vivian," Patricia said coolly, "I see you brought representation. This is Martin Hughes from Mitchell and Associates." Hughes nodded at James. "Whitaker, I didn't know you were practicing partnership law these days." "I take interest in cases," James replied pleasantly. "Shall we begin?" Roger pulled out the contract, the same one from 2 days ago. "Everything's in order. Vivian signs, we transfer the funds within 48 hours, and we all move forward." James opened his briefcase. "Before Miss Clark signs anything, I'd like to review some documents with you, just to clarify a few points about the company's financial status." Patricia frowned. "That's not necessary. We've provided a complete financial disclosure." "I'm sure you have. But as Ms. Clark's attorney, I have a fiduciary duty to ensure she understands exactly what she's signing away." James pulled out a stack of papers. "For instance, these bank transfers from March 2018. Can you explain why $127,000 was moved from the primary operating account to an account Ms. Clark doesn't have access to?" The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "That was for operational expenses," Roger said quickly. "A separate account for vendor payments. Standard business practice." Standard practice would be to have all partners as signatories on any business account. This account has only you and Patricia. Why is that? Hughes leaned forward. "Mr. Whitaker, what exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking questions about irregularities we've discovered, like these contracts." James slid several documents across the table. "These have Ms. Clark's signature, but Ms. Clark has no memory of signing them. Perhaps you could help explain that?" I watched the color drain from Patricia's face. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Vivian signed hundreds of documents. Of course she doesn't remember every single one." "Perhaps. Or perhaps someone was signing her name without authorization. That would be forgery." Roger stood up abruptly. "I think we're done here." "Actually," James said calmly, "we're just getting started." James pulled another document from his briefcase. "This morning at 8 a.m., I filed an emergency petition with the Multnomah County Circuit Court. Judge Rebecca Morrison granted a temporary restraining order freezing all Clark and Associates bank accounts pending investigation of possible fraud and embezzlement." He slid the court order across the table. "You what?" Patricia's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Furthermore, I've petitioned for a complete forensic audit of all company finances going back to 2015. The court has appointed Anderson & Co., a forensic accounting firm, to begin that audit immediately. They'll have access to everything: bank records, client files, emails, everything." Roger's face had gone from pale to red. "You can't do this. We have a legitimate partnership agreement." "A partnership agreement that was amended multiple times without Ms. Clark's knowledge or consent. These amendments—" James pulled out more documents. "Show Ms. Clark's signature. Ms. Clark says she never signed them. We'll let a handwriting expert determine the truth." Hughes was scanning the court order, his expression growing more concerned by the second. "This is highly irregular." "What's irregular," James interrupted, "is a life insurance policy for $2 million taken out on a business partner without her knowledge, with the other partners as beneficiaries. What's irregular is systematically reducing a founding partner's salary while increasing your own. What's irregular is routing client payments through hidden accounts. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a great time. Because what happened next gets even better, and you won't want to miss the next part of this story. Hit that subscribe button." Patricia found her voice first. "This is extortion. You're trying to strong-arm us into giving her more money. This is due diligence, and it gets better. James pulled out yet another document. I've also filed a complaint with the Oregon State Bar regarding your conduct, Mrs. Chen. As an attorney, you have ethical obligations. Forging documents, creating conflicts of interest, failing to disclose material facts to a client. These are all violations that could result in disbarment. I never forged anything. Then you won't mind explaining to the bar's ethics committee how your signature and Roger's appear as witnesses on documents that Ms. Clark supposedly signed, when Ms. Clark never signed them in your presence, because that's also fraud. The room went dead silent. Hughes closed his briefcase. I need to speak with my clients. Privately. Of course, James said. Ms. Clark and I will wait in the lobby. You have 30 minutes. We left them there and walked to the lobby. My hands were shaking. That went well, James said quietly. Well, Patricia looked like she wanted to kill you. Exactly. Angry people make mistakes. Right now, Hughes is explaining to them just how much trouble they're in. The criminal exposure, the civil liability, the bar complaint. He's telling them that the best case scenario is they walk away with nothing, and the worst case is they go to prison. What do you think they'll do? I think they're going to make us an offer. And Vivian? We're going to refuse it, because we're not settling. We're going to court, and we're going to win. 28 minutes later, Hughes came to the lobby alone. My clients are prepared to make a counteroffer, he said stiffly. We're not interested in counteroffers, James replied. You should hear this one. They'll resign from the partnership effective immediately. They'll sign over their combined 70% share to Ms. Clark for the sum of $1. All company assets revert to her full control. In exchange, she agrees not to pursue criminal charges and to keep the matter confidential. No. Hughes blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. No deal. Your clients committed fraud. They forged Ms. Clark's signature on legal documents. They embezzled company funds. They created a fraudulent life insurance scheme. And you want us to let them walk away? Not a chance. Mr. Whitaker, be reasonable. If this goes to trial, it will be expensive and time-consuming for everyone. I'm prepared for expensive and time-consuming. The question is, are your clients prepared? For prison? Hughes' jaw tightened. The DA might not even prosecute. Want to bet on that? Because I have copies of these documents being delivered to the district attorney's office right now. I also have copies going to the FBI. Since some of these fraudulent contracts involve federal Medicare billing, that's wire fraud, federal charges. I watched the last bit of color drain from Hughes' face. He hadn't known about the federal angle. I need to consult with my clients again. You do that. Hughes disappeared back down the hallway. James turned to me. How are you holding up? I feel sick, but also... James, is there really enough evidence for criminal charges? Absolutely. The forged signatures alone are slam-dunk fraud. The financial irregularities show embezzlement. And that life insurance policy? That's intent to defraud, possibly worse. The DA will love this case. It's white-collar crime with clear victims and clear evidence. Another 15 minutes passed. Then Roger appeared, walking toward us without Hughes. His shoulders were slumped, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Vivian, he said quietly, can we talk? Just you and me? Anything you say to Ms. Clark can be said in front of her attorney, James said. Roger ignored him, looking directly at me. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please think about what you're doing. If you pursue criminal charges, Patricia could lose her law license. I could lose everything. Is that really what you want? After everything we built together? The audacity of it took my breath away. After everything we built? Roger, I built this company alone. I brought you in. I trusted you. And you repaid that trust by systematically stealing from me and trying to force me out with threats and forged documents. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Things just got complicated. Complicated. You took out a $2 million life insurance policy on me. That was Patricia's idea. She said it was standard business practice. Standard practice to profit from my death? Get out of my sight. Roger's expression hardened. Fine, but you should know. We've already retained a criminal defense attorney. We're prepared to fight this. Good, James said. We look forward to it. The forensic audit took 6 weeks. What Anderson and Co. discovered was worse than any of us had imagined. Roger and Patricia had embezzled over $800,000 from the company over 4 years. They'd created shell corporations to invoice Clark and Associates for services never rendered. They'd renegotiated client contracts to include kickbacks paid to accounts they controlled. They'd even been charging personal expenses, vacations, cars, Patricia's wardrobe, to the company as business expenses. The life insurance policy had been purchased using company funds I'd never authorized. If something had happened to me, Roger and Patricia would have collected $2 million and owned 100% of a company worth millions more. In August 2019, the Multnomah County District Attorney filed criminal charges against both of them: fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The Oregon State Bar suspended Patricia's license pending investigation. The civil case moved faster. In September, Judge Morrison ruled in our favor on every count. The partnership restructuring was declared invalid because it had been based on forged documents. The court recognized me as the sole legitimate owner of Clark and Associates. Roger and Patricia were ordered to return all embezzled funds plus interest, pay my legal fees, and were permanently barred from working in medical billing in Oregon. But here's the part that really satisfies me. Remember those modern clients that Roger and Patricia claimed would leave without them? The hospital administrators who supposedly only trusted their professional approach? I called every single one of them personally. This is Vivian Clark from Clark & Associates. You may have heard there's been some changes in our company structure. I wanted to reach out personally to assure you that we remain committed to the same quality service we've always provided. 17 contracts, 17 conversations. And you know what happened? Not one client left. In fact, 12 of them admitted they'd been uncomfortable with how Roger and Patricia operated, too aggressive, too focused on upselling. Several mentioned that they'd been relieved when they saw my name back on company correspondence. We worked with you for years before they came along, Vivian, the administrator at Providence Portland told me. Honestly, we kept the contract because of your reputation, not theirs. By December 2019, Clark & Associates had not only retained every existing client, we'd added 3 new contracts. The publicity from the case, while uncomfortable, had actually raised our profile. Other business owners who'd been pushed out of their own companies reached out to me for advice. I started getting invitations to speak at women's business conferences about partnership agreements and fraud prevention. The criminal trial was scheduled for March 2020, but in February, Roger and Patricia's attorney approached James with a plea deal. They would plead guilty to reduce charges, accept 5 years probation, pay full restitution, and agree to never work in medical billing again. Should we accept? James asked me. I thought about it. Thought about everything they'd put me through. The stress, the sleepless nights, the humiliation of being pushed out of my own company. But I also thought about what I'd gained. My company back, my reputation restored, my future secure. Yes, I said. Let them plead guilty. Let them pay back every penny. But I'm done fighting them. I have better things to do with my time. The judge accepted the plea deal in March 2020. I testified at their sentencing hearing in April 2020. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, more intimate. Roger and Patricia sat at the defense table, both looking smaller, somehow diminished. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I stood up, my prepared notes shaking slightly in my hands. Your Honor, Roger and Patricia Chen didn't just steal money from me. They tried to steal my life's work. They tried to erase 18 years of my effort, my relationships, my reputation. They counted on me being too old, too tired, or too intimidated to fight back. I looked directly at them. You were wrong about all of that. But you were also wrong about something else. You thought the company would crumble without you. You thought the clients only stayed because of you. You thought I was disposable. Roger wouldn't meet my eyes. Patricia stared at the table. Clark and Associates is stronger now than it was when you were part of it. Our revenue is up. Our client satisfaction scores are higher, and I'm still here, still working, still building, because that's what I've always done. You didn't make this company. You nearly destroyed it. But you didn't succeed. I folded my notes. I hope you learn from this. I hope you understand that people underestimate women my age at their peril. We're not relics. We're not obsolete. We're experienced, and we're resilient, and we're a lot tougher than you thought. The judge sentenced them each to 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and ordered full restitution of $847,000 plus interest and legal fees. Patricia's law license was permanently revoked. As I left the courthouse, a young woman approached me. She introduced herself as a reporter from Portland Business Journal. "Ms. Clark, I've been following your case. Would you be willing to do an interview about what happened?" The story ran in June 2020. "Portland CEO takes back her company after partner fraud," read the headline. The article detailed everything: the fraud, the legal battle, the victory. The response was overwhelming. I received dozens of emails and calls from other business owners, particularly women, who'd faced similar situations or wanted advice on protecting themselves. Several had recognized warning signs in their own partnerships after reading my story. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't just about me anymore. I started consulting with small business owners about partnership agreements, helping them structure deals that protected their interests. I spoke at business schools and entrepreneurship conferences. I even helped 2 other women take back companies they'd been fraudulently pushed out of. Clark and Associates continued to grow. By 2023, we had 63 employees and contracts with 28 hospital networks. I hired a young woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to Roger, as my executive director. She's smart, honest, and has a gift for the modern technology side of the business that I'll admit isn't my strongest area. But this time, I did it right. Clear contracts, transparent finances, regular audits, trust, but verify. And Roger and Patricia? I heard Patricia moved to California and works as a paralegal. Roger went into real estate. I've never spoken to either of them again, and I never will. People ask me sometimes if I feel vindicated, if winning felt as good as I thought it would. The truth? It felt better. Not because they lost everything, though I won't pretend that justice didn't satisfy something deep in me, but because I proved something more important, that you're never too old to fight back, that being underestimated can be an advantage, that experience and determination can overcome arrogance and greed. That contract they pushed across the table in April 2019, the one they were so certain I'd sign? I framed it. It hangs in my office now, with a brass plaque underneath that reads, "They thought I couldn't survive without them. They were wrong." It's a good reminder on difficult days. And yes, there are still difficult days. Running a business doesn't get easier just because you've won a legal battle. But I wake up every morning knowing that everything I've built is mine. Legitimately, legally, permanently mine. My daughter Linda finally got the full story about a year after everything settled. She cried, then got angry, then hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "Mom, why didn't you tell me what was happening? I would have helped." "I know, honey, but I needed to do this myself. I needed to know I still could." Last month, I turned 68. Clark and Associates threw me a birthday party in the office. The whole staff was there, plus several of our long-term clients. Someone made a cake shaped like a contract with "Void" written across it in red frosting. Sarah Chen gave a toast to Vivian, who taught all of us that being underestimated is just another form of strategic advantage. Everyone laughed, everyone cheered, and I looked around that room at the company I'd built, lost, and reclaimed, and felt genuinely, completely happy. Because here's what Roger and Patricia never understood. This was never just about money or success or business. It was about dignity. It was about refusing to be erased. It was about standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to decide when I'm done. I decide that." I'm not done yet, not even close. I'm planning to work another 5 years, maybe more. I'm training Sarah to eventually take over, properly this time, with clear succession planning and legal protections for both of us. I'm building something that will outlast me and honor everything I've learned, both the easy lessons and the hard ones. That signature they were so sure I'd give them, the one that would have ended everything I'd worked for. I gave them a signature, all right, just not the one they wanted. I signed the court documents that froze their assets. I signed the petition for forensic audit. I signed the civil complaint. I signed the victim impact statement. Every signature was an act of reclamation. Every signature was proof that they'd miscalculated badly. They laughed when they said I'd never survive without them. They're not laughing anymore. And me? I'm thriving.